From Hickel and Cullis' their review, we learned that economic growth seems to make it difficult to achieve Paris goals or staying within planetary boundaries more generally. So, how bad is it for happiness if we would give up economic growth? The review of the happiness literature by Mackerron gives some insight into this question and situates the happiness economics literature in relation to the main neoclassical school of thought. Mackerron describes how the economics literature moved away from subjective value comparisons during the marginal revolution and started focusing on revealed preferences rather than stated well-being. The subjective well-being literature could have been said to be rediscovered by Easterlin. Easterlin stumbled on a paradox when he explored whether economic growth improves measures of self-reported happiness. In short, he found that happiness rises with income within a country, but that measures of average happiness do not respond to income differences across countries, nor does mean happiness respond to income growth over time. Easterlin in his review included 29 surveys from 19 countries. Participants in these surveys responded to one of two types of questions. Gallup poll Likert scale type of questions that asked to rate one's happiness on a scale from very happy, fairly or pretty happy to not very happy, or Contrail's self-anchoring striving scale where one determines what constitutes the worst and best states imaginable and subsequently rates one's current state on this scale. Although most economists do not like self-reported measures much, the self-reported happiness measures generally show reassuringly high correlation with similar assessments by peers and psychologists. This table shows Easterlin's first finding, that self-reported happiness rises with income in the United States in 1970. Participants in the highest income category were about twice as likely to rate their happiness as very happy. And also in the third column, we see the share of not very happy decrease with income. The following scatter plot from Easterlin illustrates that the average self-reported happiness by country does not respond much to average income. Here, Easterlin combined different studies that had used the earlier mentioned Cantrell self-anchoring scale. Easterlin showed the limited responsiveness of aggregate happiness to income growth over time with the help of tables. Instead, here I decided to include the more recent graph from Victor, his book, Managing Without Growth, from page 126. The graph shows that US income per head of the population has more than doubled between 1945 and 2005, but that the percentage of people that reports being very happy has hardly increased over the same period. The two main explanations for Easterlin's paradox are that people seem to derive utility from status or relative income and hedonic adaptation. That people derive utility from their income relative to some relevant peers can explain the correlation of happiness and income within a country. Moreover, rising incomes cannot satisfy the desire for status collectively, providing an explanation for as to why we fail to see a relation between income and happiness over time or across countries. Hedonic adaptation refers to the idea that one may enjoy an increase in income temporarily, but that happiness returns to some baseline life satisfaction once one becomes accustomed to the no longer so new high income. Here we see a graph from Engelhardt and colleagues that shows a measure of subjective well-being and GDP per capita for a large number of countries. The figure shows the importance of culture and happiness cross-country comparisons, as was mentioned by Mackerron. For similar income levels, Latin Americans seem happier than residents of former communist countries. The graph also suggests some logarithmic relationship between social well-being and GDP per capita. Here, the debate centers around the question whether such a relation remains after controlling for covariates of happiness. My reading of the literature is that most subsequent studies have confirmed the existence of the original paradox. Mackerron in his review highlighted that there are many different happiness questions and there may be some difference between affective experience type of happiness responses and evaluative life satisfaction type of questions. Perhaps the study by Knabe and colleagues illustrated this difference best. Knabe et al. Asked participants to rate how happy they felt at different moments during the day in line with the experience sampling method, and the authors asked how satisfied respondents were with their life. The title of their article sums up their study into the well-being of the unemployed, dissatisfied with life but having a good day. The unemployed reported more positive daily experiences, even when only comparing their assessment of similar activities, but they also reported being less satisfied with life. Another happiness study I like to highlight here, and that could be considered good news, is Kumar and Gilovich 2015, where on page 1320 they write, psychological research has shown that experiential purchases, a hike in the woods, a trip to Rome, bring more happiness than material purchases, a designer shirt, a flat screen television. The authors find that this higher utility per dollar spent can largely be explained by a different tendency to talk about these purchases with others. The happiness literature has grown considerably, and the application of alternatives to GDP are increasingly being considered by political leaders. Bhutan already had its gross national happiness index, and recently countries like Iceland, New Zealand and Scotland also wish to give more prominence to happiness measures in the evaluation of public policy. Let us return to the limited evidence of GDP growth improving human welfare with another figure from Victor. Instead of the percentage of people that report being very happy, this figure depicts the Genuine Progress Index. The Genuine Progress Index is equal to GDP plus voluntary work, including some estimate for housework, minus some indices for crime, pollution, inequality, and family breakdowns. If economic growth is no longer benefiting society, why do we still pursue it?